We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, welcome everybody back to the Right Stuff Matters podcast. We are back. I am your host, Michael Miller, pushing the envelope on conversations that matter. Well, as you know, we are right here in the midst of Loudoun County. It is never a dull moment here in Loudoun County with the public school system. And this week is no exception. We continue to see more and more news coming out of the public schools. We are seeing things, in fact, actually come out of Fairfax Public Schools, which is the adjacent county next to Loudoun County, for those of you who don't live in the Northern Virginia area. One of the things that we continue to see is this hyper-sexualized content within the schools. I actually received a note from someone about a survey that the Fairfax County schools are requiring for students to take. Now, actually, I'm not sure if they're actually being required to take it, but any of us who remember back to when we were in school, if somebody puts a survey right in front of you, you most likely are going to take it and you're going to fill it out and you're going to submit it. It doesn't matter whether or not they tell you it's voluntary. Most kids are going to likely take it. And this particular survey, which again, this is Fairfax Public Schools, had questions, quite a few questions in fact, because the one I'm going to read you a couple of these, are question in the hundreds. One of those questions was, when was the last time that you had sexual intercourse? And what method did you or your partner use to prevent pregnancy? This is on a survey for the Fairfax County Public Schools, which, by the way, Fairfax and Loudoun County compete each year for who is going to have the highest income per capita, which one is going to be the richest county in the United States. The next question, have you had oral sex before? How old were you when you had sexual intercourse for the first time? During your life, how many people have you had sexual intercourse with? These are on questions that are asked high school students. And we know that it goes all the way down to the age of 10 because that's one of the options for how old are you on the first question. A couple other questions on here. Some people describe themselves as transgender when their sex at birth does not match the way they think or feel about their gender. Are you transgender? And the answers are no, I am not transgender. Yes, I am transgender. I'm not sure if I am transgender, or I do not know what this question is asking. Which seems pretty hard to think that with the content that's being pushed today, that anybody would not know what the question is being asked because it's being taught week on week in the public schools. Another question, which of the following best describes you? Are you heterosexual, gay or lesbian, bisexual, or not sure? Again, these are questions that are being asked of children all the way down to the age of 10. 10 years old. What is that? 10 what's 10 years old? Is that 4th grade? 5th grade? Maybe a little bit older. But a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old has not even hit puberty. Well, at least not yet, I guess. I mean, we seem to be drifting further and further down in age when that starts, and a lot of it has to do with the hypersexualized culture that we're living in today. So this is a questionnaire that your 10-year-old may be taking in school. And the only reason that we know about it is because parents have seen it, teachers have seen it, and they have decided to let the public know what's going on. But where else is this happening? If it can happen here, then what other schools are pushing this? Asking these kinds of questions. They're asking questions that children should not even be asking questions about yet. Where are the parents with pitchforks going to their school board meetings and crying out for what's going on here? I mean, it really is just perversion and the pushing of an agenda. Now, you've seen, if you pay attention to what's going on here in Loudoun County and now even Fairfax County, we're seeing lots of parents go to school board meetings and cry out about stuff like this and stand up and say, we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to tolerate this kind of content being jammed down our children's throats. Get back to the basics. Get back to reading, writing, arithmetic. Start making schools about educating kids to prepare them to be good citizens and to go out and support their family, to support themselves. That's what going to school should be about. Not pushing sexualized content. Not pushing kids to question whether or not their body is in the right gender. But ultimately, that is what they want you to question. That's what they want your children to question. It's been publicly said by people who advocate for transgenderism that this area, this Northern Virginia area, is the laboratory for pushing this kind of ideology, for indoctrinating kids, causing kids to question whether they're right body or not. It's all about promoting that. And if this is the lab, then what are your children? Your children are the lab rats that are being experimented on. So I say again, where are parents outraged about this? And not just parents who have their kids in the public schools. Where are parents who are paying for this? Taxpayers who are paying for this. Now, you may choose to homeschool your child, put them in private school, but your tax dollars still go to pay for these types of things, for these types of programs, and this type of content being pushed within the schools. So, go to your school board meeting, write to your representative, and tell them that you're not going to tolerate this kind of content being pushed in front of 10-year-olds or any child, for that matter, in the public school system. And that's the only way this is going to change. This is the only way that people are going to start waking up and realizing that we care about what gets taught in the schools. But I have another question. You know, I've been to a lot of school board meetings, particularly this year. I think all the way back to February, March, things really started kicking off here in Loudoun County. And so I started going to school board meetings. And there really was not a lot of people initially. I think maybe we had 20 of us, maybe 30 even. And I've been attending almost every other week when they have the school board meetings and speaking for my 1 minute. That's all you get. You get 1 minute. And as I said last time when I spoke, which was, I guess, last Tuesday, 1 minute is not nearly enough time to explain all of the frustrations, all of the irritations that we have with the school board. But nonetheless, we go, we line up, we wait for 45 minutes sometimes, maybe longer, so that we can get our 1 minute on the stage to speak. And during that time, I've seen a lot of parents. What I find fascinating is that I don't see a lot of pastors. I don't see a lot of pastors showing up. And we live in a county that has a lot of churches, and therefore a lot of pastors. But yet I have not once seen a pastor come in. I've not once had a pastor that I've seen walk into a school board meeting and declare, I am a pastor. Now, that some of them may have come, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that no pastors have come. But there aren't nearly enough or as many as I would expect. I know some of you might be saying, well, why in the world would you expect pastors to go to this? Because they have children or some other reason? My question is, why wouldn't a pastor come when they're the ones who have children who attend these schools who belong to their church? And so they have to teach these children. These children within the church are being taught these types of things 5 days a week, which means they're being taught it more often than when they're in church. And as pastors, I really still think, maybe some people don't view them this way anymore, but pastors are supposed to be leaders within the community. They are supposed to be people who help the community, who lead in times like this. That has historically been what pastors have done, what church leaders have done. And so you may not have children in the public school system. You may have chosen to homeschool or private school your children. Or maybe you're a retired pastor who doesn't even have children. But yet, as a leader in the community, when you're seeing this types of immorality being pushed in a school system that congregants within your church are seeing, are hearing about, are being taught, I would think that church leaders would be the first ones to line up. I would think that Christians within churches would be the first ones to line up and say, we're not going to tolerate this. We are not going to tolerate this kind of sexual content to be pushed in our schools. And not only that, but the parents who are in these churches, their children are the ones they have to teach how to navigate this. I would have expected to see town hall meetings in churches in order to help parents navigate through this. Now, you might think, well, maybe you're just being too hard on churches, on pastors. But I think it's time. I think it's time for Christians, for church leaders, to start to recognize what's going on and stand up and be leaders within the community again. Not just within their church, not just within their particular congregation, and that's all. But to see this as something that the entire community needs to be involved in. So we're going to continue with this fight here. And we're starting to see more and more come out of other school boards across the country. Of course, we're getting most of the attention here in Loudoun County, but it is everywhere. And now, of course, the goal with all of this going on, and the entire country, it seems, looking at us right here, what are they going to try to do? Well, they're going to try to say that, that's not really happening here. That's not really happening. You are just being subjected to misinformation, and that's all. Which has happened. There was a full one-page, I don't know, I guess you call this a brochure, a pamphlet, from an organization, I think based here in Loudoun County, called Loudoun for All. And they put out this one-pager that's, it says Facts Matter. Right-wing operatives have been sowing misinformation and chaos aimed at inciting anger and division in Loudoun County. What is the truth? And it goes on the list. This is the real truth of what's going on here. They say, quote, the school board has no involvement in the school has no involvement in or knowledge of the handling of the recent sexual assault cases. Okay, that's what they claim. Second thing they say is misinformation. School board members did not dox parents. Now, for those of you who don't know what doxing is, it means intentionally trying to collect information on somebody so that you can go and get them fired, go tell their neighbors that they're, in this case, racist or something else. Try to get them pushed out of the community, out of your neighborhood, out of their job, out of their church, every part of life. Basically get them canceled. That's what doxing is. It says school board members did not do that. Well, I'd love to know where they get their information, because I've actually seen where that exactly happened, where school board members were involved in trying to dox parents, encourage other people to do it. Apparently, though, that's just misinformation. Even though we've had an entire investigation on that, we've had an entire community sign enough petitions to recall one school board member. And there are many more along the way. And that school board member, as of last Friday, already resigned. So, if they didn't do all that, then what was that all about? Thirdly, the school board is not violating public meeting rules. Well, that was the whole case behind the recall, is that they violated open meetings laws by creating a quorum in a private Facebook group. The recalls are political manipulation. That's the fourth one. The fifth one, critical race theory is not being taught at LCPS. Huh. Well, that's kind of interesting because we've even had the school board member who was recalled and decided to resign as of Friday even admit in a school board meeting that she thought that some form of critical race theory was being taught. And, there's actually this idea that's being pushed around that, well, we're not really teaching critical race theory in the schools. Well, sure, of course you're not. You are not teaching a class called Critical Race Theory 101. Come to my class, come learn about what critical race theory is about. That's not, of course, we all know that that's not happening. So sure, you're not teaching critical race theory. However, they are teaching critical race theory, how to use it, how to do critical race theory. So they're not teaching the philosophy behind it, but they're teaching through that lens. Number 6, Democratic state representatives did not remove mandatory reporting from schools, even though we can look at that. And LCPS does not want boys in the girls' bathroom. That is the last supposed truth, according to this organization, Loudon for All. You know what this is called, right? I mean, we all know what this is called. It's called gaslighting. And that's exactly what they're doing. And they want you to believe that everything going on here, all of these parents that are coming and standing up at school board meetings, taking time out of their day, literally leaving work, going straight to school board meetings so that they can stand in line for maybe up to an hour to speak for 1 minute. 1 minute. And constantly for months, month after month, be ignored. Yes, they're doing that because nothing is going on. There's nothing wrong in the public schools. Yes, that's what the truth is. And they expect you to believe that. And sadly, I think a lot of people will. They will see that, yeah, these guys are just blowing this out of proportion. It's not really that bad. It's not really that serious. It couldn't possibly be as bad as they say that it is. Well, there's a lot of evidence out there. And the biggest of which is that parents aren't just coming here for no reason and spending all this time and energy for no reason. It's because it is happening. And it's true. And it's time for more accountability within our schools. And it doesn't matter whether or not that you have a child in the public schools or not. Your tax dollars still go to pay for this. And we have a responsibility to be good stewards of what we've been given and what we have, of our community, to be involved in the community, to help shape it. So get involved, go, and use the rights that we have. We've talked about this multiple times on this program and in other places that I've spoken about it, that we have the ability as Christians to use our rights, just like Peter did, just like Paul did. They used their rights as Roman citizens to be able to influence the culture, to influence the society, to influence people who were in positions of leadership within the government. And if we were living during that time, their involvement, their use of their rights would probably be called, politics. Politics, which, let's face it, that's the reason why most people don't get involved who are Christians. is they say, well, that's just politics. I don't want to get involved in that. Well, I've got some news for you. I hate to say it, but everything has become political. Everything is political today. It doesn't matter what it is. There is no apolitical place. There's not any place that you can go at this moment that will not be forced to take what would be considered a political stand on something. I'll give you a perfect example if you don't think that this is true. Let's say that you belong to a country club. I like golf. That's no mystery to anybody. I don't get to play nearly as much as I'd like to, but if you become a member of a country club, and let's say we get to Gay Pride Month. What is that month? I don't know. August, September. It's some month. And you get to that month, and the country club says, you know what? We don't want to get involved. We don't want to be political. We're not going to acknowledge it at all. We're not going to say anything about it at all. Okay. Don't say anything about it at all. And then you know what? Somebody's going to come to that country club and they're going to say, hey, why didn't you guys acknowledge Gay Pride Month? Well, we just don't want to get involved. We just don't, that's political. We don't want to get political. Oh, so you don't believe that celebrating gay pride is a good thing, huh? You see what just happened? It just became political. There is nothing today that is not political. And so we have a lot of work to do. And I don't believe that our role as Christians is just to stand around and just watch it all just happen and let it all just go away. I thought we were to be salt and light in the world, which means having a preserving effect. And right now, more than any other time in the history of this country, we need some more salt and light. We'll be right back. right, we are back. You know, we're hearing a lot about this vaccination and employers who are telling people that they will no longer have a job if they do not get vaccinated. There was a blog post, although I could say it's probably a full article. The impending mass firing of America's unvaccinated. I think that probably what frustrates me the most about this whole article is that it highlights first responders who are no longer going to have a job as a result of choosing not to get vaccinated. Police, firefighters, doctors, nurses, paramedics, airport security, prison guards across the country are facing termination this week if they don't comply with their employer's vaccination requirements. Many have already lost their jobs or have been disciplined. Others say they will defy the vaccine mandates on principle. And as a result, essential workers may soon be short supply in many parts of America. The U.S. federal government has a deadline of Monday, November 22nd for all civilian federal workers to be vaccinated. And we're seeing this everywhere. Of course, we did see some good news that came out today. Southwest Airlines, which was pushing for a vaccine mandate for all of their employees, actually came out today and said, yeah, you know what? We decided that we're not going to require vaccines. We're not going to put people on leave or terminate them as a result of them not choosing to get a vaccination. And I'm sure that means that all of that issues that they had last week, it was just weather, right? You notice that they haven't had a lot of delays lately. So thank goodness, whatever it was, I guess they fixed it. I don't know. Maybe whatever the problems they were having with their airplanes with the weather, no longer having a problem. So thank goodness for that. But this is really getting widespread, not just in companies that are requiring it, but people saying we are not going to put up with this. And I'll tell you what's interesting about this whole vaccine thing going on, is that in the middle of all of that, a well-known Christian who used to teach at Liberty University now teaches at Southeastern Seminary, Karen Swallow Prior, comes out with an article last week that says that for the most part, Christians are not persecuted and don't lose their job or let me rephrase that. She mentioned something about the losing your job because you're a Christian, and that doesn't really happen here in America. And that people who claim that they can't be openly Christian in their job, well, you're just making it up. You're just pretending. So she titled her article, Cosplay Christianity, The Sin is in the Denial of the Life God Calls Us to. So in that, she says, quote, I've heard more than a few Christians complain that they can't be openly Christian and be employed. In America, this is another kind of cosplay Christianity. So, in the middle of a time when employers are requiring vaccinations, and one of the reasons that you can use to say that you won't get vaccinated is a religious exemption for several different reasons, whether that just be your conscience says that you can't get it, or you say that, hey, we're not sure whether or not fetal line or fetal cells were used to develop the vaccine, or some other reason, related to a religious exemption. If you try to put in to get that exemption and your employer denies you, doesn't that mean that in some way you're losing your job because you can't live out openly your Christian values and principles? So it's kind of interesting that she would actually write an article about that in the midst of all of this happening. But let's say that we aren't in the middle of a pandemic, or should we say plandemic? Probably a better way to say it. Let's just pretend that this never happened with COVID at all. It still would be grossly inaccurate. For multiple different reasons. I think one of the problems within Christianity today, in America in particular, is that we've become so accustomed to associating whatever is legal with being okay morally for Christians. But that is not the case. That's not the case at all. I mean, think about, let's just take abortion for a minute. Abortion is legal in this country. Is it morally acceptable for a Christian to have an abortion, to support abortion, to pay for abortion? No, but it's legal. And that's one example of many. What about affirming somebody for being transgender, which is becoming increasingly difficult in this country to not affirm somebody who's transgender anywhere that you go, to include the workplace? If you don't affirm somebody as transgender in the office, you may lose your job. What about as a doctor? If you're a Christian who's a doctor and you can't say to somebody, look, I don't believe in that lifestyle. I'm not going to call you by whatever pronoun you're asking me to call you by. I'm going to call you by whatever you were born as. You were born a boy, you're he. Born a girl, I'm going to call you she. If you try to do that in most doctors' offices today, you will lose your job. How about as an educator? Tanner Cross, right here in Loudoun County, was suspended, was put on administrative leave because he stood up in front of a school board meeting and said, I'm not going to lie to my students. I'm not going to tell them that a girl can be a boy and a boy can be a girl. And right now, since they've passed a policy 8040, means that he can actually be fired for not acknowledging that, for not allowing a boy to use the girl's bathroom if he feels like he's a girl that day. But yet we have somebody like this. We have somebody, Karen Pryor, who says, oh, no. You know, if you say that you can't be an open Christian and still keep your job, that you're just acting. You're just pretending. That's what she says, and I think the reason she does that is because she spent her entire life in Christian academia, and she didn't understand what goes on in the real world. So we move on to another big thing that's happening right now, a lot of attention, and that is the economy. I think that we paid $4 and some a gallon on our recent travel. So let me ask you this. Are you better off right now than you were a year ago? Were things cheaper a year ago than they are today? And we all know the answer to that. The answer is absolutely not. They are much more expensive than anything else. In fact, P&G came out today, that's Procter & Gamble, for those of you who don't watch the stock market. Procter & Gamble says they are raising prices on a host of household staples as costs for freight and raw materials rise faster than the consumer product giant anticipated. How much did it grow? Well, they now expect to spend $2.1 billion more on transportation and raw materials, such as pulp and resin, for the fiscal year ending June 2022. The company in July had predicted a $1.9 billion increase. The finance chief from Procter & Gamble said today that we do not anticipate any easing of costs. We continue to see increases week after week, though at a slower pace. So we know the cost of things is going up. We know that there is a logjam of goods that are sitting right off of our coasts. I've seen videos, multiple videos of the Port of Los Angeles and the fact that they can't actually move all of the goods that are coming in. They can't even open it up enough so that they can actually bring those ships in. So you're waiting longer and longer and longer for supplies to get in, which is putting a heavy burden on the economy. There are already stores that are saying that they don't have enough food. You've seen bare shelves. Bare shelves. That only happens in crises in this country. That hasn't happened in a long time. And I'm not talking about the anomalies like the hurricanes or, snowstorms and things like that come in and everybody buys bread and milk and, I don't know what else. Eggs, I guess. I guess everybody makes French toast when it snows. And you know what the reason that's being given for why? Well, the reason being given is that you're not vaccinated. You haven't been vaccinated. In fact, Wally Ademayo, I probably really butchered his last name, from the Treasury Department said today, or this week, that the reality is that the only way we're going to get to a place where we can work through this transition is if everyone in America and everyone around the world gets vaccinated. That's the solution. So it's your fault. If you haven't been vaccinated, then it's your fault that the economy is where it is. But is that really true? Is that what's driving the entire economy? Of course it's not. Of course it's not. And what are you supposed to do as a result of all of this? Not only is it your fault that you got vaccinated, but if you're not happy about the fact that everything is log jammed and you can't get what you want, well, according to Micheline Maynard, who wrote an opinion piece in the Washington Post this morning, you know what you should do? You should lower your expectations. Lower your expectations. You are greedy. That's the solution. Which is another way of saying just get used to it. Just get used to it. Yeah. If you feel that you are entitled to be able to, she actually uses the example here of, I think, a blue cup and a red cup. Well, I wanted the red cup, but yeah, the blue cup looks nice. So you should just deal with it. That's her solution. We all know that that's not what's really going on with the economy. Of course, we don't have time tonight to go through all the things on the economy, so we're probably going to have to end right there. But we'll pick it up next week when I think we set a time now. We have been doing our podcasts so that they're kind of just sporadic, But we're going to try to meet every Tuesday, 8:30, right here, however you're watching, whether that's live on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. We'll be on all of those channels. So make sure you join us next Tuesday, 8:30 live, or you can go to therightstuffmatters.com and you can download the program right there. So I think that's about all the time that we have for. One thing I do want to mention too, actually, as we wrap up, is that we had a really good event on last Thursday to talk about education and freedom in education. And that will be available. The video will be available up on our YouTube channel here very soon. You can go and look at the live recording now. But make sure you go to our YouTube channel or go to the Blue Oak Project YouTube channel, and you can watch everything that we did there. A couple of great speeches, and then also a very good panel discussion with several people. So make sure you go check it out. We'll see you next time on The Right Stuff Matters.